All right, you have 9:30, Nick? We're on. It's ready. We're going to roll here. Okay, we are in the middle of our look at the moon as we continue through the Heavens Declare series here. We're not going to quite make it through everything that has to do with the moon, but we'll get most of the way there. God bless you. And we will, after that, so next week we'll finish up the moon, and then we'll also be starting gravity. Very exciting, I know. But we've got a lot of stuff still to cover in this series. We've got gravity, we've got the stars, we've got aliens, the search for alien life. We've got space exploration and a look at the space race that the Soviet Union and the United States were in for many years from the 50s through the 70s. Lots of good stuff to go through.
There's a movie called Rocket Boys based on those boys in West Virginia.
Yes, that we've seen. You know what? We actually showed that movie out. This is about 10 years ago. We showed that movie out on the church lawn because it's a very interesting movie. Yes.
In West Virginia, they celebrate those. I had a neighbor from West Virginia, and they had these yearly celebrations about those three boys.
Yeah, so that sort of stuff will get covered later on. But now we're in the middle of the moon, not literally, but we last time talked about the moon Maria, the dark spots on the moon, and the last thing we talked about was the moon dust. So we'll pick it up with chapter 6 and look at moon rocks.
When astronauts came back from the moon, they brought moon rocks for scientific study. Geologists hope it would give us some clues about the age of the moon through radiometric dating. But unfortunately, dating rocks isn't so easy.
Radiometric dating has been done on moon rocks. In fact, what a lot of people don't realize is it's rocks from outer space, things like moon rocks and meteorites, that they base the age of the Earth on. Yes, I mean, it really shows you how their philosophy has influenced their point of view. They would say, well, we know that the Earth rocks have been recycled and so on, so they use rocks from space to date the Earth. Interesting. The moon rocks date similar to meteorites and things like that, in that they give allegedly old age estimates of 4.5 billion years, something like that. That's because all those dating methods are based on certain assumptions, like the initial ratio of the elements and that there's been no contamination and that the decay rates have always been the same. And we now think that that third assumption is false. There's very good evidence that the rate at which radioactive decay happens can be accelerated. We think it has been accelerated at one or more points in history. And if you don't compensate for that, your ages will be vastly inflated. But we do find good evidence of that inflation. For example, the fact we can carbon date anything, and whatever you carbon date, if it's got sufficient carbon in it, it'll give thousands of years. People think carbon dating gives billions of years. It never does. It's consistent with thousands of years.
Well, that didn't take too long. All right. Number 1 under moon rocks. What rocks do scientists use to date Earth rocks? Meteorites and moon rocks, stuff from outer space, with the assumption being they were there first. So we'll date those first, and then we'll extrapolate from that what the date of the Earth is. And what does that show about secular science's reasoning? It's backwards. Yeah. God says he created the Earth, and then on day 4 he created the sun and moon and stars. They get it backwards. What assumption did Dr. Liesel state he thought was false? Carbon dating relies on what assumption?
Oh, there's no contamination.
Well, that is actually one, no contamination, and also that the rate of decay is constant. That there's been no change in the rate of decay. What's wrong with that assumption? It has been shown that catastrophic events can greatly change the rate of decay. And number 3, what happens if you don't take into account That doesn't make any grammatical sense. What happens if you don't take into account that assumption or compensate for that assumption? You'll get a wrong conclusion. In fact, it'll be hugely wrong. You will inflate thousands of years into millions or even billions of years. And that's exactly what's happened. Thousands of years have been inflated into millions and billions of years. Number 4, can carbon dating be used to date things that are thousands, millions, or billions of years old?
It can do the thousands.
The thousands, yes.
But not millions and billions
Because once you would get, yeah, go ahead.
once there's no carbon left in there, you can't date it.
Carbon should
Deteriorates.
deteriorate and disappear after 50,000 years. I try to, when I'm going through this, then go do a little bit of research ahead of time and see, well, what's the evolutionary argument then for carbon dating being used when carbon should only last for 50,000 years? I haven't found it yet. I know it's out there. I just haven't found it yet. But if any of you find it before I find it, please let me know, because I'd like to know what how they explain their way around that one. Number 5, we still find carbon in things that are supposedly millions of years old. Why is this a problem for people that believe in the millions of years ages? It should have dissipated. There shouldn't be any carbon left in anything that's more than 50,000 years old. Even 50,000 years old is a greater length of time than biblically we can really say the earth is, but 50,000 years, and that's assuming the constant rate of decay too, the 50,000 years. So, has anyone ever touched a moon rock?
I think I've seen one in a museum, but no one ever touched one.
Yeah, that's one of my fond memories as a kid when we took a trip to Washington, D.C. and went to the Air and Space Museum there. They have a moon rock there. You just walk up and touch the moon rock. You think, this came from the moon. That's pretty neat. There are other places. They brought back a lot of moon rocks. They really did. And there are a lot of museums around the country that have moon rocks. And if you get the opportunity to go touch a moon rock, just think for a second of how far away that thing came from. They might have one at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah. All right, let's move on to the Apollo fraud, so-called.
For many years, rumors have spread that the moon landing was faked. The supposed evidence can look pretty convincing, but real-life testimonies, observations, and scientific data demonstrate otherwise.
Sometimes people come up to me and say, did we really land on the moon? Wasn't that all faked on a sound stage because they saw some special on Fox or whatever? Well, yeah, we really did go to the moon. And in fact, I've worked with people who've worked with actual dust that was brought back from the moon. And I've seen moon rocks that have been brought back from the moon. So we definitely went there.
In fact, I was traveling 2 years ago in South Africa. A man came up to me, Christian fella, and he wanted to know, you don't believe they landed on the moon, do you? And I said, yeah. You don't? He said, no. I said, give me a reason to believe. And I said, well, okay, you're a Christian, right? Yeah. All right, do you realize that 2 of the 12 men who walked on the moon, Jim Irwin and Charlie Duke, were born-again men? They're Christian brothers. He didn't know that. And I said to him, well, you know, when you say that we've never walked on the moon, you're accusing these 2 Christian brothers of the biggest thing that happened in their lives is a total hoax. They're liars and frauds. Now, are you really prepared to say that about a Christian brother? He said, never thought of that. One's now deceased, but the other one, Charlie Duke, is still quite well alive. I saw him about a year ago. So he's the person you could ask, and he would assure you, yes, I really did walk on the moon.
It's interesting, too, because we didn't really have the technology in the 1960s to fake it. If you take a look at movies today, we're just now getting to the point where they can make it look real. Back in the 1960s, they couldn't do that. It was technologically possible to go. It wasn't technologically possible to fake it, which I think is very interesting. Also, we should know that they've put equipment there, including a reflector And people can bounce a laser off the moon, off that reflector, and get the return signal, and it's there. Recently, we actually have spacecraft orbiting the moon taking high-resolution pictures of the surface. We can actually see the lower portion of the spacecraft, because if you recall, they left the legs of the lander when they took off to save fuel. We can actually see those on the moon. All of the Apollo landing sites, they're there. And you can even see the trails of the footprints of the astronauts as they went out to investigate the various craters and so on. We have actual pictures of these today. I think it's a shame that people question that, because in a way it's kind of like, that was our finest hour right there. That was science at its best. Wow.
Okay, just because it gets talked about so much these days, they threw this chapter in there too. Number one, do Dr. Liesel and Dr. Faulkner believe we landed on the moon?
Yes.
Yes. Who has Dr. Faulkner worked with in this regard?
Charlie Duke.
Yeah, and what has he seen?
Well, going back when they say they faked it, I have to look at Godzilla and King Kong movies and see how fake they are. They're not like it today where they almost look actually real.
Yeah, if you watch science fiction movies, basically Star Wars made this huge jump in special effects. Things kind of looked somewhat believable or real, the space travel in Star Wars. That was 1977. Back in 1969, science fiction movies, that is a good point, they looked hokey. You have to, it's the old thing where to believe this, you have to believe a whole lot of unbelievable things. That thousands and thousands of people could keep a secret like this for that amount of time, and that it's far easier to just simply believe that it is what it was presented to be, first of all. Number two, what Christian brother can we talk to that actually went to the moon? He's passed, but Charlie Duke is still alive. At least he was still alive when this was when this curriculum was put together. And I got to be honest, I hadn't ever thought of it from this perspective, though. But what does it say about him if we don't believe that he went to the moon? We are judging his faith and accusing him of being a liar. When, well, what does Luther say in the Eighth Commandment, in his explanation? That we take everyone's words and actions in the kindest possible way. Unless we're given a clear reason to believe that someone is lying to us, we take the word of our Christian brother or our Christian sister, and to accuse everyone who ran the Apollo space program of committing fraud by staging the Apollo moon landings is actually to slander the faith of these Christian brothers who went to the moon. Number three, what's on the moon that we can shoot lasers and see? There is a reflector there. We have shot lasers at the reflector and bounced them back. The astronauts went up there to put the reflector there. What else can we see? Yeah, we see the what do you call it? The platform and the legs that was it Eagle? Eagle was the part of the Apollo craft that went down to the moon, landed, but then it separated and just the pod containing the astronauts came up, leaving the platform and the legs. We can see those with a high-powered telescope. What else can we see?
They can see footprints.
They can actually see the footprints. Well, and you say, well, wait, that's sort of weird to see footprints more than 50 years after the fact, but no one else has been there. They don't have weather on the moon to disturb things. Sure, the footprints that were made from 1969 to 1975, they are still there on the moon and are still visible. The flag, yeah, did they mention the flag? I've wondered about that too. I said, well, we should be able to see the flag, and then that should be just that. Of course, we'd be looking down on it. We wouldn't really see it, and it doesn't flutter because there's no breeze. They had to put stiffening rods in the flag when they planted it. Number 4, what did we have the actual technology to do in the 1960s? To go to the moon. We went to the moon. We orbited it, and we as human beings landed on it and returned the human beings who went down to the moon safely. What did we not have the technology to do? To make it look like it all happened from a soundstage here on Earth.
According to Wikipedia, Charlie Duke celebrated his 90th birthday earlier this month.
Oh, okay. So Charlie Duke is still alive, even though there's been some time that has passed since the curriculum was put together. So, all right. So that's the Apollo project and the fact that we went to the moon. Before we take our break, we're going to do Chapter 8, the Moon Effecting Tides.
More than just a light source at night, the moon plays a pivotal role in the health of our oceans. The distance, size, and mass of the moon are exactly right for our tides and seasons.
The moon is about 1/4 the size of the Earth. It's about 80 times less massive, because that involves volume. We far outweigh the moon, although I must say our moon is, compared to the size of our planets, larger than any other moon when you compare the over 100 of them we have in the solar system. So I think we're given just the moon that we need. And all I can say is with the distance that the moon has and with the mass that God's given it, it causes us the kind of tides that keep the ocean healthy.
If you had nothing blocking those tides, they could get fairly strong, but you have the tides running into the continents in between the oceans. The Earth itself gets pulled by the moon, and we don't feel it, but it gets pulled up about 1 foot. And those are called earth tides.
If you bring the moon closer to the Earth, then tides will increase. Tides are friction that causes heat. If you bring the moon close to us, the oceans could warm up. They could come to a boil. They could go away. And if you go the other direction, then the tides would be diminished. Then the ocean would settle down and become stagnant, and the life in the ocean could perish. Our life depends on the health of the ocean as well. And as we have found, there's a delicate balance here. It's even called the anthropic principle, that everywhere we look, it seems that things have been set up for our survival. And if you try to change these numbers for the moon, all of a sudden it becomes a danger to life on the Earth.
Okay, question number 1. How big is the moon in relation to the Earth? 80 times less volume and 1/4 of the size. Number 2, what causes the tides? The gravity pull of the moon on the Earth's surface causes the tides. There's a gravity pull of the moon on the Earth as a whole, and he said we get pulled like 1 foot. We don't feel it at all. But for liquid, it causes all the liquid in the oceans to move. It causes the tides, and as the moon orbits the Earth, then those tides move, and that actually has, well, I don't want to spoil it. Number 3, what do these tides accomplish for Earth? Balance, and I think they even use the word cleansing there. The movement of the water cleanses everything, not perfectly, but you need water to move, or else harmful bacteria grows in water. Where do mosquitoes come from? Stagnant water. You want water to be moving, flowing. The ancient Israelites had a term for water that moves, living water. Living water. That's water that moves. You can drink from it. Animals can drink from it. It's useful. The opposite of living water is dead water. Water that you don't want to drink from because it's just been sitting there and it's not good. The oceans are always moving, and thus life is perpetuated inside of those oceans.
We have an example in the homeland, the Dead Sea.
Yeah, the Dead Sea. Yeah, that is not living water. Yes. Number 4, what would happen if the moon was too close to Earth?
The seas could dry up or boil because it would increase the heat and
Yeah,
water would disappear or boil.
the movement of the tides is a friction type of movement. Friction makes heat. To make more friction would be to make more heat. Theoretically, you could, I don't know the science behind it. Is it actually theoretically possible that the oceans could boil if they could heat up, is as much as I'll say. They could heat up and possibly not sustain the life that's in there. And number 5, what would happen if the moon was too far away?
It would decrease the tides and then you'd have stagnant water.
You do no more tides, no more living water, right. Number 6, what role do the continents play in the tides? Yes, that's where the motion ends. And you go to the seashore and you see where it ends. It ends on the beach. and the waters of the tides smooth the beaches, and they make pretty good real estate there, those tides. Yes?
Is that also why, like, with our lakes, like Lake Michigan has, like, movement inside the south because
Absolutely, yep.
of the moon and where it's positioned?
Yep. It's the Great Lakes are large bodies of water, and as such, they have tides. The water is constantly moving in some way, shape, or form, unless it's frozen, yes. Which does happen.
A bottle in the water, it's like interesting where somebody found it.
Sure, message in the bottle, yeah, yep, yeah, and the tide. You can somewhat predict the tides, and we've looked to if your life groups have been meeting lately, and you've done chapter 4 of what we're going through the life groups, we talked about the dispersion of human beings after the Tower of Babel, and part of that is dependent on the ocean currents too, which are somewhat predictable. And you look at the ocean currents, which are tied in with the tides, and you can see how people, even in very primitive vessels, even rafts, could have gotten from what we think of as the Middle East to all parts of the world some 4,000 years ago. Number 7, what is the anthropic principle?
This is a new balance between itself and the earth, such that just the right amount of motion in the ocean for our survival.
Yes. It's a complicated way of scientists who don't really believe in God saying, wow, what a wonderful coincidence that all of this stuff sustains human life. And it doesn't apply just to the moon and the tides. It applies to so many other things in the universe and on Earth too. This anthropic principle that if any of these things were out of balance, human beings and other forms of life, like animal life, wouldn't be able to exist. You recognize anthropos, the Greek word for human beings there. We get anthropology, anthropologists from that. The anthropic principle is an admission by secular scientists that everything just seems to fit together coincidentally in a way that sustains human life. We know it's not a coincidence. It's all part of God's plan. So, all right, we're going to take our break now before we get to the receding moon. And enjoy some Sumatran decaf and Costa Rican regular. So. Okay, welcome back. Hey, during break I thought I would do something. Since I told you I didn't take the time to really do a deep dive into the evolutionists' explanation for carbon existing in rocks that are supposedly billions of years old. So I asked artificial intelligence, how can this be? And they said, well, that's easy. Because we now know that in certain mineral forms, carbon becomes chemically stable and doesn't decay. And we know that because we've dated these rocks to be billions of years old. We know they're billions of years old, and the carbon hasn't decayed, so we know that the carbon just doesn't decay in certain mineral forms. Very circular reasoning. But you understand they have to have an answer like that because the rocks have to be billions of years old. They must be, or else everything, all the hypotheses about the Big Bang and lower forms of life becoming higher forms of life, it all falls apart. So it isn't very good logical science, but that's your explanation for why there is carbon extant in rocks that are supposedly billions of years old. Well, because it just doesn't decay then, because we said so. So, yeah, well, you're right. Well, I figured AI is going to be, that they're going to take the majority view, the majority scientific view. So. All right, so we're going to get on with chapter 9, the receding moon.
A little known fact is that our moon is slowly moving away from the Earth. It's not by much, but if you move back or forward in time, this lunar recession has big impacts on what we think about the age of the Earth.
As we study our moon, we have come to realize that the moon is moving away from the Earth. It's spiraling outward every orbit. Not that we see the moon getting smaller in the sky. It's only a few inches per year, so during a lifetime, no difference at all. But this adds up over 10 years, or 100 years, or 1,000 years.
This was first discovered in the late 19th century by George Darwin. He was the son of Charles Darwin. He was an astronomer, wrote a definitive work on the tides. Many libraries still have copies, still used. I've consulted it a few times. The thing is, there's a complex interaction going on. It's called the tidal interaction. I won't really go into the physics too much, but the moon raises tides in the Earth rapidly rotates, and that tidal bulge pulls the moon forward in its orbit like this, which is an acceleration, which over time causes the moon to slowly spiral outward like this, getting farther and farther away. It's only moving an inch and a half or 2 inches, something like this each, like 4 centimeters. It's not much. And over my lifetime, it's moved my height a few times, maybe. It's not much, but when you extrapolate over a long period of time, it gets huge. We can model this somewhat well. It's a very steep function of the distance. It goes as the tidal interaction accelerating the moon goes as the inverse sixth power of the distance, which means that in the past, when the moon was closer, the interaction was horrendously high. So it looks kind of linear for a while, but then it departs radically from that. And I've run the numbers myself a few times.
When you do this math at the current rates that it's moving away and the equations of tide coupling as we know them, you come up with the conclusion that if you extrapolate back in time, the moon would be in contact with the Earth. It'd be right up against the Earth on a time scale of about 1.4 billion years. Now, I want to be careful. I'm not saying that the moon is that old. I'm saying that it can't be anywhere near that old. And yet, evolutionists tell us that the moon is 4.5 billion years old. It can't be. If you get the moon anywhere near the Earth in our vicinity, then the tide coupling would disintegrate the moon. It would pull it apart. We would have a ring around the Earth.
Now, if you have a choice between a 6,000-year-old creation and a 4.5 billion-year-old creation, and you've got this other argument that says that it can't be any more than 1.3 billion, it would seem to eliminate this one entirely. And this then leaves something less than 1.3 billion. The only one on the table right now is the 6,000 year. The point I'm making is that this is a very stiff upper limit to any theory of how old the moon is. Not a problem for us, big problem for the evolutionists. This problem's been recognized for a very long time, at least since the 1960s, probably earlier. And over the years, they've tried to suggest all sorts of solutions for this.
The lunar recession issue is interesting because this is one of the claims that creationists are making that the atheists say show that we're all washed up. They say that creationists have oversimplified this issue because if you look at other evidences, they will tell you that today's recession rate is anomalously high and that in the past it doesn't match a straightforward mathematical analysis of this. And they would point to things like tidal rhythmites, which are systematic layers of sediment in various places that are believed to reflect tidal patterns. And from the tidal patterns, you can then calculate the moon's orbit and so on. They would say that if you arrange the Earth's continents differently in the past, that tidal friction is less and therefore the recession rate would be less and so on. There's 3 or 4 reasons they give to try to support their claim. It turns out all of their claims themselves are not supported. Tidal rhythmites are very vague. Even among secular people, there's a lot of contention about whether or not, how much information you can glean from these things at all. They make big assumptions about what the Earth used to be like in the past, which I don't think are correct. And as far as rearranging the continents, there's an issue with that too. That makes the assumption that tidal friction is primarily occurring in continental shelves and shallow seas, which everybody thought was the case until recently. Some oceanographers discovered that a large portion of tidal friction occurs in the deep ocean bottoms. And deep ocean bottoms are going to be there regardless of how you arrange the continents. So if the atheists want to rebut the creationist argument about lunar recession, they need to go do their homework more than they have.
I had a discussion with some Christian astronomers a couple of years ago, and I asked for the evidence of this, and they give me the data, and they said, well, we have these computer simulations. And I said, that's not data, that's just a computer simulation. There is no evidence for this. It's just my Christian brethren and the evolutionists who believe in billions of years think that that solves the problem, but all they've done is they give me a plausibility argument as to how you can get around this. It's what's called a rescuing device to make this work. And I think this idea of tidal evolution of the Earth-Moon system is pretty solid stuff. Also slows the Earth's rotation down. We've documented that from eclipse data, and also since the last 40-something years with the reflectors on the surface of the moon, we actually can measure that directly. That's where we get the 4 centimeters. That's amazing. Something's 250,000 miles away and you can measure its distance to a fraction of an inch. That just blows me away that can be done.
Okay, under the receding moon, number 1, according to this video, what is happening to our moon?
It's spiraling kind of upward every orbit?
Yes, it is getting farther and farther away from the Earth. How much is it receding? Number 2. 4 centimeters a year. Now, wouldn't you love to see the tape measure that they used to get that measurement? But they're able to detect that, and that's apparently indisputable. 4 centimeters every year, which makes it very difficult to justify a 1.5 billion year old moon, much less a 4.6 billion year old moon. Number 3, who wrote the main work on the moon's tides? George Darwin. We've come across him before, but that just because he was, like his father, an evolutionist doesn't mean that he didn't do some good work as well. He wrote a book called The Tides, which is still sort of the definitive book on the observations of the moon and the moon's effects on our oceans. Number 4, what is tidal interaction between the Earth and the moon? Sure, go ahead.
The interaction between 2 orbiting objects, the moon and the Earth, and the resulting tide.
Okay, so we've got, there is a cooperative effect of the moon on the Earth and the Earth on the moon when it comes to tides. The moon causes our tides, but the tides themselves affect the moon. They exert a gravitational pull on the moon, accelerating it, and then causing these, that acceleration then causes the moon to spin in its orbit a little bit farther away from the Earth every year. Number 5, what happens when we take this idea of the moon receding back in time? You get a moon that's practically right on top of the Earth. And like, well, that doesn't work for all sorts of reasons. You say, okay, 4 centimeters, you just do the simple math of 4 centimeters every year, but then multiply that by billions of years, you got an Earth and a moon that are right next to each other.
It says if it was near us, the Earth, the time traveling would disintegrate the moon. If you pull it apart.
Yeah, I saw that in the paragraph, and it wasn't really referred to in the video, so I don't quite grasp what they're talking about there, but generally I trust these folks, so if they say that's how strong the tidal pull on the moon would be, they're probably right. It's theoretical anyway, because the moon was never that close to the Earth. But number 6, what are creationists accused of regarding this issue? Yeah, oversimplifying. Like, you can't just take 4 centimeters, just because right now, here in the 21st century, we see the moon moving away 4 centimeters every year. Like, you can't go back and say it's been doing that since the beginning of time and do all the math that shows how close the moon would be to the Earth 4.5 billion years ago. And to an extent, they're right, because there was no 4.5 billion years. But do evolutionists have hard evidence that the rates have changed? No, their answers are computer models into which they've fed information, said, well, the rate was slower here, so let's show the rate of the moon moving away from the Earth as being much slower.
They say that with our oversimplifying, they say they can't use today's calculation because it might have been slower in the past, and then their support is they make assumptions that there used to be like in the past. And they want to make sure they're giving solid evidence and for the rebut our arguments.
It sounds like evolutionists, when it comes to this difficulty of tidal coupling and tidal interaction, are accusing us of using their playbook. Where they say, hey, now wait a second. Now that's what we do when it comes to carbon dating. We assume this rate is always the same. And you're assuming the rate's always going to be the same. You can't do that. That's our job. We do that. So, and then...
I'm confused. One of theirs, George Darwin wrote about it. So they're disputing what he wrote.
Well, Darwin's book about the tides was observational, just from what I understand. I haven't read it. Just seeing describing what he saw and could measure. And what they're saying now is, well, you can't take that data, that hard data, and extrapolate into the past, into the billions of years past, that it was always that way. And I think my first thing was, but you do that all the time. Your entire worldview is based on doing that. So, all right, we're going to finish up this morning by looking at the Roche limit in chapter 10.
So the moon gives us clues that the universe may not be so old. To make the idea of naturalism even more impossible is a scientific principle called the Roche limit.
The Roche limit is the limit at which the force of gravity between 2 points in an orbiting object is insufficient to keep the object bound together. You can have moons inside the Roche limit a little bit, but they're held together chemically. Their gravity would not hold them together, which means a moon cannot form inside the Roche limit. It's impossible.
And if a planet's moon moves inside that Roche limit, then the gravity forces they can destroy the moon. They're stronger than the forces that are holding the moon together. So it's sort of a disintegration limit. The rings of Saturn are inside the Roche limit for Saturn. So you couldn't have a moon there. In fact, maybe those rings were a moon to begin with, but they've been pulled apart to pieces. So our own moon has to stay beyond the Roche limit for the Earth, or we wouldn't have a moon anymore. For the Earth, that's about 2.5 times the Earth's radius, so the moon is well beyond that. But again, if you go back to this idea that the moon is slowly leaving the Earth, if you extrapolate back in time, then sooner or later you bring the moon inside the Roche limit and the moon is pulled apart, it's destroyed. Now I want to be careful. We have satellites, artificial satellites, and they're not that far. They're inside the Roush limit, and they're not pulled apart. But it's not just gravity that's holding satellites together, it's rivets, which is stronger than gravity. So the Roush limit involves gravity forces of larger objects.
Okay, number one, according to Dr. Liesel on the video, what is the Roche limit?
Gravitational forces of larger objects.
It has to do with the gravitational forces on outer objects.
It's the minimum distance between an object like the moon to another object like the Earth before it's torn apart by tidal forces.
Yes. So what was mentioned in the description of the last section where the moon could be torn apart, this is where this is expounded on. Inside the Roche limit, a natural satellite can't exist because the tidal forces that the Earth would give to that natural satellite would pull it apart. We see that out in space. We see that with Saturn and Uranus. The rings around there are inside the Roche limit, and thus those what otherwise might be full-fledged moons are pulled apart. Number two, are the rings around Saturn inside or outside of its Roche limit?
Inside.
Yeah, and that's why they are particleized. Number three, what are the implications of the Earth's moon for the idea of billions of years if you go back in time when it comes to the orbit of the moon?
Well, if you take place from the last video, billions of years, the moon would have been right up on top of the Earth. But with the Roche limit, it would have said the moon would have disintegrated into particles, so we would have rings around Earth of the moon.
Yeah, like we said last time, you take that 4 centimeters a year and, assuming the constant rate, move the moon back towards the Earth 4 centimeters a year for billions of years, you get the moon right on top of the Earth. But then that can't happen because the moon would be torn apart. And the moon looks pretty intact. Number four, why are man-made objects like satellites inside the Roche limit not torn apart?
Rivets.
Well, yeah, think of what a satellite, I just saw in the news this morning, Monday evening, I believe, Starlink launched 20 satellites from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California on a SpaceX rocket, and just pretty neat to see. But you think of the engineering that has to go into those things to get them off the ground in the first place. They have to withstand these huge G-forces of rocketing them up through the atmosphere into outer space. They are built to last.
Yeah, they've got to be built so they don't burn up because that's hot when you go up.
Yeah, they are engineered to withstand all sorts of things. Rocks are not engineered to withstand all sorts of different things. So these, and even then, our artificial satellites all have a limited time span. They all end up burning up anyway. Once they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, they don't stay out there forever. But they're built in ways, they're built to withstand forces even greater than the gravity that the Earth exerts on them. And that's just shown by the fact we were able to get them up there in the first place. Okay, so that's going to cover.
When the Russians put up that satellite, I mean, that was, what, in the 60s when they put that?
1958.
58, okay.
Or was it 57?
I mean, it probably isn't up there anymore, but.
No, Sputnik is not up there anymore. In fact, didn't a piece of Sputnik fall in Manitowoc? Yeah, I'm pretty sure a piece of Sputnik fell in Manitowoc. Yeah.
You have to figure at that time what they had to do to get that thing up there and to stay up there for however many years.
Did the advances, I don't know, I haven't previewed it yet to see how much we're talking about the space race, but the advances in rocketry from the 1920s to the 1950s are just absolutely astounding. And a lot of that was, sadly, the work of German scientists who were trying to develop the flying bombs. But
What about the Universal Space Station that's up there? I mean, how is that doing in regards to...
I don't know what its lifespan is, but when I was a little kid, the big thing was Skylab. That was launched in 1973. And Skylab lasted, I believe, 12 years or so. I'll have to look that up afterwards. But
I've heard it's aging and they're trying to
yeah.
update it as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
It's been up there quite a long time.
Well, right. We had the astronauts that were stranded up there for some time. That was not a... Right. So, but we will get to all those and other topics when we get to the space race.
Is that next week?
No. That's a ways down the road. Yeah.
This is putting forward that the moon was created within the ocean.
Well, we talked last week about some of the naturalistic assumptions of where the moon came from, and the one that was used for many years, and the one I think that George Darwin came up with, was that the Earth sort of spit out the moon. A mass came out from the moon, because you can almost imagine the mass of the moon fitting in the Pacific Ocean basin. You know, not much of a, no scientific evidence to say that happened, but that was the thought anyway. But the Roche limit would say, no, that couldn't happen. So lately, in the last 50 years, the thought has been that the moon was captured by the Earth as it flew by. So, but it seems to be something that scientists these days don't talk a lot about, the origin of the moon, just because none of their hypotheses really end up sounding all that great.
Well, they get
The Earth,
disproven, and then
yeah.
they don't have a way to...
Or at least shown to be highly unlikely with the capture method, like we talked about last week. Yes.
Would it be easier, instead of thinking of we're coming from a single cell organism to billions of cells, would it be easier to do devolution, like we're a great being and then we are disintegrating down? Because how does a single cell actually create like higher functioning?
Well, we're starting from ground zero when there's nothing. How does everything get to be where it is from nothing, I suppose? And like we've said many times before, it depends on your worldview and what starting point you have. If you start from Scripture, of course, you're going to start from God and what He said happened. And if you don't start from there, you've got to come up with it on your own. So, all right, let's close this. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
When you talk about the force of the tides,
Mm-hmm.
there's some place in Nova Scotia or Labrador, I think it's called the Bay of Fundy, where it goes up like 30 or 40 feet on this cliff when the tide comes in. I mean, it's that strong in that one area.
I haven't heard of that. I'll look it up. Labrador? Yeah.
Charlie found it.
That's like a screensaver.
Okay.
Oh, no kidding. It's Charlie's screensaver. Saver. But they don't grow coffee in Labrador, do they? No, so. Yeah.
That's the one place I don't think you're going to find cotton.
Let's close with a short prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, while secularists may call it just an anthropic principle, we know that we exist because of your great love and because of your great power. And we continue to exist through your providence. And we see that providence in the structure of Earth and moon and the interplay between the two. We thank you for Christian scientists who, out of curiosity in learning more about your created order, have discovered so many principles and so many wonderful truths about your creation. We also know that you have not given us the ability to know everything. And so we trust your divine judgment to give us the information that you know we need. And We simply put our confidence in you that whatever you promise will be given to us will one day come true. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.